Hidden beneath towering Andean peaks, Peru's Colca Canyon plunges more than 3,300 meters, making it one of the deepest gorges on Earth and a playground for giant Andean condors. Do you know that Lake Titicaca, straddling Peru and Bolivia, is the world's highest navigable lake and shelters ancient floating reed islands still inhabited today? Oasis. Machu Picchu crowns a rare stretch of Andean cloud forest where the high mountains spill into the Amazon basin, a landscape found in only a handful of places on Earth. Do you know that within this mist-wrapped amphitheater, dozens of orchid species thrive, some unique to the slopes of Machu Picchu, and that its stones are precisely interlocked to survive centuries of earthquakes? Walking its terraces, you feel the living architecture. The terraces themselves are micro-farms that control temperature and erosion while feeding ancient populations. The Central Plaza and Sun Temple map celestial cycles. During solstice, sunlight threads through niches and windows with uncanny precision. Most visitors see the main citadel, but hidden stairways lead to agricultural sectors and cooling springs that hint at engineering far beyond simple construction. To Ollantaytambo and Pisac, through a network of trails, trade, and shared astronomical knowledge. Mist lifts and reveals Huayna Picchu's steep face, a companion peak threaded with its own terraces and secret viewpoints above the ruins. Climbing it narrows your perspective and then opens into panoramas that fold the Shrubamba River into a green ribbon below. Archaeologists still uncover new chambers and botanical clues that rewrite the story of who lived here and why they chose this particular ridge. Each discovery deepens the mystery. Was Machu Picchu a royal retreat, a spiritual observatory, or a living university for elite knowledge? As clouds race down the canyon, orchids and bromeliads cling to stone, turning architecture into a hybrid of human design and jungle reclamation. That fragile balance is why access and conservation are tightly regulated, preserving not just sky, but an entire mountain ecosystem. From the terraces, the trail slopes toward the sacred valley, where farmers, markets, and ruins continue the story that started at this high city. Machu Picchu is both a destination and a crossroads, a place that pulls the visitor onward into Peru's layered landscapes and histories. In the next segment, we follow the river downstream to Ollantaytambo, showing how water and stone shaped Inca life across the valley. But before leaving these ridges, take a moment to trace the mason's joints and the living trails where past and present meet. Colca Canyon plunges more than 3,000 meters between its rims, making it one of the deepest canyons on Earth. Do you know Colca Canyon hosts irrigation terraces that have fed Andean communities for over 1,000 years? Early morning thermals here summon the giant Andean condor to ride the winds above the abyss. Local villagers still tend terraces called andines, carved into the slopes long before the Incas disease. The canyon's walls reveal layers of volcanic rock and fossilized marine life, evidence of an ancient ocean uplifted by tectonics. In narrow gullies and broad plateaus, pre-Columbian engineering channels melt water into a living mosaic of crops. Travelers come for the spectacle of condors wheeling at dawn, their 10-foot wingspans silhouetted against pink sunrise. Yet the human stories are just as compelling. From farmers who trace their fields to ancestors' hands, to rituals still performed today. Pathways trace the same pilgrim routes that linked highland communities for centuries, connecting villages like Chivay and Cabana Conde. From those high rims, the valley opens into broader highlands that lead toward the white city of Arequipa. In that transition, volcanic peaks like Misty stand watch, tying Colca's raw geology to the wider Andean story. Join us next as we descend from these cliffs and follow the trail toward Arequipa's volcanic silhouettes and colonial plazas. Along the way, we'll meet artisan weavers, shepherds, and condor trackers who read weather and wind like a language. Their knowledge keeps terraces thriving and stories living through festivals, textiles, and shared meals. The canyon is not only a geological wonder, but a living classroom where past innovations inform sustainable futures. To understand Kulka is to see how humans and environment have cooperated in a fragile highland ecology for millennia. Stand at a rim lookout, and the silence teaches you the scale of time that shaped every ledge and river bend. The next chapter takes us down into the hot springs and narrow gorges, where water continues to carve new stories into the rock. Towering at 6,768 meters above sea level, Huascarán, Peru's highest mountain, anchors a dramatic landscape of ice and rock that few places on Earth mirror. Nestled in the Cordillera Blanca, the highest tropical mountain range in the world, the park shelters glaciers that persist in equatorial latitudes, a climatic paradox. Here, turquoise glacial lakes like Laguna 69 and Laca glow from mineral-rich rock flour, their colors shifting with the angle of sunlight and the meltwater flow. Scientists and shepherds alike watch these waters nervously because warming temperatures have accelerated glacial retreat and filled moraine dams with unstable reservoirs. Between jagged peaks and high puna, wildlife has adapted in remarkable ways, from the stealthy Andean spectacled bear to herds of graceful vicuña and the majestic Andean condor. Plants such as ichu grass and the rare high-altitude puya species cling to slopes where oxygen thins, creating fragile ecosystems that regulate water long after the snow has gone. Within the park, Quechua communities keep traditions alive, herding llamas and cultivating tubers on terraced slopes that have sustained people for centuries. Their knowledge of seasonal melt, rock slides, and hidden mountain paths is woven into the landscape and becomes critical when ice dams threaten downstream valleys. Huascarán's glaciers have also shaped Peruvian history in more dramatic ways, from ancient glacial lakes that nourished civilizations to modern-day hazards like outburst floods that reshaped towns. Research stations and local rangers now map shifting ice and install early warning systems, turning traditional guardianship into a high-tech fight to protect lives and water supplies. For travelers, the park offers more than alpine vistas. It offers a lesson in planetary change, where every shrinking glacier echoes consequences far beyond the Andes Isthmus. As you descend from Huascaran's cold spires, meltwater rushes into the Callejón de Huaylas, carrying stories of ice and life toward valleys, markets, and the next remarkable stop on Peru's mountain trail. Follow that current, and you'll find how the mountains feed cities, farmers, and spirit alike. A connection that pulls the story toward the nearby thermal springs and highland villages where the Andes influence softens into human rhythms. Lake Titicaca sits more than 3,300 meters above sea level, making it the highest navigable lake on Earth. Do you know that some islands on Titicaca are man-made, woven from the totora reeds by the Uros people for centuries? Its surface stretches like a sapphire plate between Bolivia and Peru, reflecting clouds and mountain peaks with uncanny clarity. To ancient Andean cultures, this water was sacred, often regarded as the birthplace of the sun and the cradle of the Inca dynasty. Walk the Reed Islands, and you'll feel how every footstep is cushioned by layers of vegetation, a living architecture that must be rebuilt every few years. Fishermen still paddle hand-carved balsas, reed boats that glide near ruins where pre-Inca communities once thrived and traded across the highlands. Taquile and Amantani Islands rise from the lake with stone terraces, embroidered traditions, and knitwear patterns whose meanings map kinship and history. Visitors who stay with island families share meals, learn dances, and witness rituals that bind people to the rhythms of wind and water. Beneath the placid surface, the lake shelters unique species adapted to cold, thin air, while wetlands host migratory birds and endemic amphibians. Yet climate change, sedimentation, and overuse threaten that fragile balance, pushing communities to adapt or relocate as water levels and seasons shift. The reed harvest, once measured by ancestral calendars, now follows weather signals that are less predictable than before. Local leaders combine ancient knowledge with modern conservation efforts, protecting breeding grounds and promoting sustainable tourism as a lifeline. At dusk, shorelines glow with lamplight and smoke as families gather to exchange stories that carry legends of gods, giants, and silver-headed serpents. Those tales flow outward, like the lake's currents, connecting mountain rituals to distant valleys and hinting at the roots that linked pre-Columbian cultures. The sacred valley of the Incas in Peru holds a microclimate mosaic, where terraced slopes produce crops at altitudes few valleys support. Do you know the Sacred Valley, also called the Urubamba Valley, shelters over 300 archaeological sites and ancient terraces still irrigated with Inca precision? Walk through Pisac's zigzag terraces and you'll find potato varieties that exist nowhere else on Earth. Local farmers coax frost-resistant tubers and rare grains from benches carved into the mountain like living libraries. From Pisac, the river slides toward Ollantaytambo, where massive stone blocks and stepped platforms once framed an imperial control point. Those same terraces at Ollantaytambo channel snowmelt so precisely that villagers grew crops in microclimates spanning tropical to high Puna within a single valley. A short journey leads to Moray, the circular agricultural laboratory, whose concentric terraces create temperature gradients that mimic dozens of ecological zones. The valley's altitudinal diversity lets farmers harvest multiple seasons in one calendar year, producing corn, quinoa, and exotic fruits side by side. That agricultural richness helped sustain cities like Cusco and seeded the knowledge that would later build Machu Picchu's terraces high above. Today, walking from Pisac to Ollantaytambo, to Moray and Maras, is to read a living manual of ancient innovation. Each site hands the story to the next, revealing how engineering, ecology, and ritual braided together to shape an empire's backbone. And when you peel back the landscape, you discover secrets: stone alignments, forgotten canals, and crop strains preserved by generations. The Sacred Valley is not merely a scenic corridor, but a laboratory, market, and archive that still teaches the world about resilience. Soon you'll see how these ingenious systems culminate at Machu Picchu, connected by rail and ritual to the valley below. The journey between terraces, salt pans, and mountain fortresses is the real lesson the Sacred Valley has quietly passed down for centuries. Huacachina Oasis is one of the only natural desert lagoons in South America, an inland palm-ringed pool cradled by towering dunes. Do you know Huacachina's dunes rise over 100 meters, and adventurous locals race down them on wooden sandboards and roaring buggies? A glassy lagoon sits at the village center, reflecting swaying palms and the wide desert ski like a living painting. Local legend speaks of a mermaid who once surfaced there, a tale that kept the oasis alive in stories long before tourism. What looks postcard perfect is fragile. The lagoon nearly vanished when groundwater was overdrawn, prompting urgent restoration efforts. Community action and engineering interventions helped replenish the pool, turning Huacachina into a small model of desert conservation. By daylight, the place hums with sandboarders carving tracks and dune buggies, throwing curtains of golden sand into the air. At night, the dunes muffle the world, revealing an astonishing canopy of stars that seems unusually close above the silent slopes. Archaeologists have found artifacts nearby, reminding us that these springs supported human life long before modern visitors arrived. That continuity lends every footprint in the sand an echo of past journeys, binding present thrill seekers to ancient desert rhythms. Huacachina also opens onto Ica's vineyards, where heat-soaked soils yield grapes for pisco and robust wines. Many travelers slide from dune slopes to tasting rooms, switching from adrenaline to the slower craft of winemaking. From the highest crest, you can see where sand meets horizon, a hint of the vast plains leading toward the Nazca geoglyphs. Leave Huacachina with the feeling that these rolling dunes are more than playgrounds. They are corridors carrying you toward Peru's deepest mysteries. Palcoyo Rainbow Mountain crowns the high Andes with a rare spectrum of mineral bands that stretch in gentle arcs across a 4,900-meter ridge. Do you know Palcoyo is one of the few places where iron, copper, and manganese combine so cleanly to paint entire mountainside layers into visible stripes? Unlike the vertical streaks of nearby Vinicunca, Palcoyo's colors sweep horizontally, creating broad ribbons that can be read like geological pages. That horizontal language tells a story of ancient seas, sedimentary deposits, and tectonic uplift pushed seaward over millions of years. Local Quechua herders point to these bands as markers of ancestral grazing routes and seasonal calendars etched into stone. At sunrise, the palette softens to pastels and the ridges look like painted waves frozen in time. The trek to Palcoyo is gentle by high Andean standards, a 3-hour round walk that rewards visitors with panoramic views without the harsh scramble of other peaks. With each step, the landscape shifts: fields, rocky passes, then suddenly that impossible banded slope opening like a curtain. If Vinicunca is the poster, Palcoyo is the quiet essay. Less tourists, longer views, and a deeper sense of place. Here you can watch weather move across the high plateau, from luminous blue to swirling snow, within the same afternoon. Geologists note that Palcoyo's vivid hues are more stable over seasons, making it an ideal natural laboratory for mineral mapping. Conservationists, meanwhile, work with villagers to manage grazing and foot traffic to preserve the fragile soils that hold the colors. Standing on Palcoyo's rim, the next chapter of our journey becomes obvious. The glacier-fed valleys that lead toward the sacred summit of Oasis. From this colored vantage point, we can trace the roads shepherds have followed for centuries toward high mountain lakes and hot springs. We'll follow that braided path toward the turquoise lakes beneath Oasis, where mineral-rich waters echo the mountain's painted slopes. There, high-altitude reflections will reveal how the Andes keep their own record of light, ice, and human memory. Salinas de Maras in Peru are a high Andean mosaic of over 3,000 salt pans fed by a hypersaline spring, producing crystalline salt through evaporation, in a practice that dates back to pre-Incan times. Do you know that the water for these terraces rises from a hidden underground channel, and that families still partition and manage individual pools passed down across generations? From above, the pans look like living patchwork, a dizzying array of white, beige, and rose glassy plates clinging to a steep mountainside. Each shallow basin is filled, skimmed, and raked weekly so that salts concentrate, and different mineral profiles are created depending on the season and the pour. Local producers harvest salt, not just for table use, but for artisanal soaps and cosmetics, whose mineral fingerprints are unique to Maras. You can still find the pungent, briny blocks sold by hand at village stalls, carrying micro-flavors of the sacred valley itself. Geologically, the site is remarkable because the spring is supersaturated with sodium chloride due to ancient evaporite deposits uplifted by Andean orogeny. Today, small cooperatives are blending ancient methods with modern certification to export morass salt worldwide, while protecting water rights and steep slopes from industrial encroachment. Yet despite growing tourism, the governance remains hyper-local. You can still meet elders who will tell you exactly which pond yields the sweetest crystals. The tactile quality of the salt, coarse, slightly moist with a complex minerality, changes the moment it touches food, a culinary echo of the valley's geology. And for travelers, tasting that salt becomes an entry point into conversations about community, adaptation, and the fragile balance between preservation and profit. Throughout the year, Maras morphs. Rains cloud the terraces one season, and winter sun bakes them crystalline the next, making photography and timekeeping both unpredictable and irresistible. As you walk away from the last rim, the valley's white veins recede into the mountains, but their story, of water trapped, concentrated, and shared, lingers long after. High above the rim of Colca Valley, sheer cliffs plunge more than 3,300 meters, creating one of the planet's deepest living landscapes. Do you know Colca Valley hides terraced farms still tended the same way for over 1,000 years by descendants of the Calagua and Cabana peoples? Every dawn, Andean condors tilt on thermals that rise from the canyon, offering the rare spectacle of birds spiraling against ancient stone. Below, steaming hot springs and quiet villages form microclimates where orchids and quinoa coexist within walking distance. Farmers carry on centuries-old irrigation rituals etched into the canyon walls, their terraces tracing pale lines like fingerprints across time. Archaeologists still puzzle over pre-Incan engineering that defied altitude and ecosystem boundaries, preserving crops across climatic extremes. At Mirador Cruz del Condor, the scale becomes impossible to ignore. The canyon rolls away in layered folds of red and ochre. Yet the real wonder is how life persists here. Puppy-faced vicuñas grazing slopes, while condors ride the same air for hours. Ancient paths link Colca's hamlets to volcanic highlands, guiding travelers toward bubbling geysers and the white city of Arequipa downstream. In the next segment, we'll follow one of those ancient trails toward Arequipa, and then across the plateau to the mirrored waters of Lake Titicaca. What you'll discover will blur the line between natural marvel and human persistence and reveal why Colca Valley is both sanctuary and storyteller. Watch as farmers coax potatoes from terraces at 4,000 meters, cultivating heirloom varieties found nowhere else on Earth. Their techniques are living laboratories of resilience, offering lessons for global agriculture as climates shift and waters become scarce. And when night falls, the canyon becomes a cathedral of stars, an ancient observatory for communities whose calendars were mapped to constellations. This is where the sky meets stone and story, a place that insists we listen to the land before we move on. Arequipa lies in southern Peru, beneath three towering volcanoes, Misti, Chachani, and Picchu Picchu, forming one of the world's most dramatic volcanic skylines. Do you know Arequipa's historic core is built almost entirely from sillar, a rare white volcanic stone that gives the city its nickname, the White City. Walk its colonial streets and the stone glows like sunlit marble, carved into churches, mansions, and the honeycombed arches of the Plaza de Armas. The Santa Catalina Convent, a city within a city, preserves centuries of monastic life behind sillar walls that absorb and reflect the highland light. Yet Arequipa's beauty is not only built, it's volcanic, a living landscape formed by eruptions that continue to shape agriculture, culture, and local craft. Farmers on the volcano's slopes tend terraces fed by mineral-rich soils, while artisans carve sillar into doorways, urns, and delicate church altars. In the shadow of El Misti, markets sell rustic cheeses aged in cool stone cellars, roasted cuy, and other flavors born from this unique highland climate. Local kitchens turn those ingredients into regional icons. Rocoto relleno, adobo, and chupe de camarones, recipes passed down across generations. Arequipa also leads you toward the high Andes, Its cobbled streets and colonial arcades give way to winding roads that descend to Colca Canyon. On that route, small communities keep living traditions alive, weaving alpaca textiles and celebrating festivals that tie volcanic myth to daily mesa. By dusk, the silver facades take on a warm, honeyed hue, and the silhouette of El Misti frames the sky as residents light lamps and gather in plazas. Soon we'll leave Arequipa's white stones and climb into the canyon's wind, where condors and cliff faces compose the next breathtaking chapter of Peru's volcanic story. High in the southeast, the Manu Biosphere Reserve contains more tree species in a single hectare than many countries do in total. Do you know the Humboldt Current that skirts Peru's coast turns Lima's shoreline into one of the richest marine kitchens on Earth? But the city of Lima is more than a coastal pantry. It is a living junction between ocean, desert, and Andes. From the crumbling grandeur of the Plaza Mayor to the glass towers of San Isidro, history rubs shoulders with commerce. Walk along the Malecón in Miraflores, and you can watch surfers carve waves fed by that same Humboldt Current. Skate parks perch above sheer cliffs where paragliders launch and the city spills toward the Pacific below. Lima's colonial churches hide Baroque facades and silent courtyards stacked above layers of pre-Hispanic foundations. A short drive east takes you to the archaeological complex of Huacapuclana, where adobe pyramids rise from urban neighborhoods. Every market in Lima is a map of Peru's ecosystems, piled high with Amazonian fruits and Andean potatoes beside fresh anchovies. Chefs in tiny cevicherias and Michelin kitchens alike treat those ingredients as living stories, blending centuries of technique with modern curiosity. The shantytowns of the hills, known as pueblos jóvenes, send a steady stream of music, textiles, and resilience back down into the city's heart. From folk festivals to street food stalls, the social fabric links Lima's highland migrants with coastal traditions. At sunset, the district of Barranco becomes a theater of light and paint, where street art narrates the city's long conversations. Galleries and cantinas spill onto narrow streets, and old mansions have been reborn as cultural laboratories. Even Lima's traffic has a rhythm that reflects its geography, moving from the seaside cliffs inward toward the dry valleys of the Rimac. Follow the Rimac upstream, and you find pre-Columbian bridges, pottery shards, and neighborhoods that remember a time before Spanish stones were laid. In this city, the ocean, the desert, and the highlands don't simply meet. They compose the very recipes, music, and rituals of everyday life. Exploring Lima is to trace those invisible currents, from market stalls to cathedrals, from surf to sky saints, and understand how one place connects every other. From cloud-clad terraces of Machu Picchu to the mirror calm of Lake Titicaca, Peru stitches together landscapes found nowhere else on Earth. We chased condors over Colca Canyon, traced Inca stones through the sacred valley, and listened to the Amazon breathe beneath a canopy so dense it seems to hold its own weather. Along the southern coast, the Nazca lines still whisper their gigantic secrets into the desert floor, while the Pacific cliffs of Lima hide vibrant neighborhoods and culinary revolutions. High in Huascaran's icy shadow, villages cling to slopes that have taught generations how to survive and celebrate adversity. Every river, trail, and market threads a story of resilience, craft, and feast, where ancient rituals live beside modern invention. And the people, Quechua, Aymara, Amazonian communities, Mestizo city dwellers, are the real keepers of this complex living landscape. If the ruins and peaks are the bones of Peru, then its food, music, and festivals are the beating heart that invites you in. This is a country that refuses to be boxed into a single postcard, revealing its next surprise just when you think you've understood it. So leave room in your plans for unexpected detours, and let curiosity be your guide across high passes and lowland rivers. Because what you take away from Peru will be more than photos. It will be a tether to places, people, and stories that have been waiting for centuries to be heard.